something has changed. And the people sitting inside Israel's most secure military bunkers, the generals, the intelligence chiefs, the defense planners, they know it. They've been watching it happen in real time, and what they're seeing is keeping them up at night in a way that Iran's missiles never quite did before. Because for years, Israel had a system, a réponse, a layered shield that gave its leaders a level of confidence that even if Iran fired, Israel could handle it. But that calculation is shifting. The missile threat from Iran is not the same threat it was 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago. It has evolved. It has adapted. It has become smarter, more layered, harder to intercept, and in some critical ways, harder to predict. And today, we are going to walk through exactly how and why Iran's missile strategy against Israel is changing, and what that means for a region that is already sitting on top of a powder keg. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments right now, where in the world are you watching this from? Whether you're in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, Pakistan, India, or anywhere else across the globe, drop your country below. We have viewers from dozens of countries tuning into every video, and we genuinely love seeing where this conversation is reaching. So go ahead, drop your location in the comments. We'll be reading every single one. Now, let's go back to October 2023, because that's where this story really begins to accelerate. When Hamas launched its attack on Israel on October 7th, it triggered a war that reshaped the entire Middle Eastern threat landscape. And one of the things it did, one of the things that often gets overlooked in the coverage of Gaza, is that it forced Iran to make a decision. A fundamental strategic decision about how openly and how directly it was willing to confront Israel. For decades, Iran had operated through what it calls the axis of resistance. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, militias in Iraq and Syria, the Houthis in Yemen. Iran would fund them, arm them, train them, and let them do the fighting while maintaining what diplomats call plausible deniability. Iran wasn't at war with Israel. Its proxies were. Tehran kept its hands officially clean. Then something unprecedented happened. On April 13th, 2024, Iran broke from that doctrine. For the first time in history, Iran launched a direct missile and drone attack against Israeli territory, firing over 300 projectiles from Iranian soil. It was a moment that military historians will study for decades, and while Israel and its allies intercepted the vast majority of those projectiles, and while the physical damage was limited, the strategic significance of what happened that night cannot be overstated. Iran had crossed a line it had never crossed before. The era of pure proxy warfare, of always keeping 1 degree of separation between Tehran and the battlefield, was over. Iran had shown its hand, and in doing so, it had also revealed something about its capabilities, its limitations, and crucially, what it was going to have to change if its missiles were ever going to get through. Because here's the thing about that. April 2024 strike that Iranian military planners took away from it. The interception rate was extraordinarily high. Israel's Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow missile defense systems working in conjunction with American, British, Jordanian, and French assets knocked down an estimated 99% of the incoming projectiles. From a purely military standpoint, the strike failed. It caused almost no meaningful damage to Israeli military infrastructure. And Iranian generals, sitting in their command centers watching the data come in, drew the same conclusion that any serious military planner would draw. The current approach isn't working. The current mix of drones and ballistic missiles, fired in the current way, against Israel's current defenses, is not going to achieve strategic objectives. Something has to change, and then Iran tried again. In October 2024, a second direct strike. This time, Iran made adjustments. The composition of the attack was different. It relied more heavily on ballistic missiles, and less on slower drones, which had proven easy to intercept. Iran used its Fatah hypersonic missile, a weapon that travels at speeds exceeding Mach 13 and follows a semi-ballistic trajectory that is significantly harder to track and intercept than a conventional ballistic missile. Some of those missiles got through. A small number struck Israeli territory and caused damage at an Israeli airbase. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was a proof of concept. It was Iran saying, "We have learned, we have adapted, and our next attempt will be more effective than our last." That is the core of what's happening here. Iran is running a live-fire learning curve against the most sophisticated missile defense architecture in the world. Every attack generates data. Every interception tells Iranian engineers something about where their missiles are being detected, how early, by what systems, and at what points in their flight path the defenses are most effective. And that information is feeding directly back into Iran's missile development and operational planning. This is not a static threat. This is a threat that is actively and rapidly evolving. And Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the defense establishment knows it. Let's talk about the specific ways Iran's missile strategy is changing, because this is where it gets deeply technical and deeply important. The first and most significant shift is the move toward hypersonic and maneuvering warheads. Traditional ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc up into the atmosphere, then back down. Radar systems can track that arc and calculate where the missile is going to land, giving interceptors time to be positioned and fired. Hypersonic missiles are different. They travel at extreme speeds, 5 times the speed of sound or faster, but they don't just go up and come down. They can maneuver. They can change direction mid-flight. They can fly at lower altitudes where radar has a harder time tracking them. And they give interceptors a drastically smaller window of time to respond. Israel's Arrow 3 system is designed for high-altitude interception of ballistic missiles. Its Arrow 2 system handles mid-range threats. David's Sling handles medium to long range. Iron Dome handles short-range rockets. Each of these systems is calibrated for a specific type of threat, a specific speed, a specific altitude, a specific trajectory. Hypersonic maneuvering warheads don't fit neatly into any of those categories. They create gaps. And Iran knows exactly where those gaps are. The second major shift is saturation strategy. The logic here is brutally simple. If you fire enough missiles simultaneously, you overwhelm the defense. Every interceptor missile is finite. Every radar has a maximum number of targets it can track at once. Every command and control system has a ceiling on how many decisions it can process simultaneously. If Iran can fire a large enough volley, say, 150 ballistic missiles in a 10-minute window, it forces Israel's defense systems to prioritize. And in prioritization, some things inevitably get through. Iran has been significantly expanding its ballistic missile stockpile. Estimates from Western intelligence agencies suggest Iran now has one of the largest ballistic missile arsenals in the world, somewhere in the range of 3,000 missiles of various types. That is a number that creates real saturation concerns for Israeli defense planners. Because interceptor stockpiles are expensive and finite, and there is a mathematical point at which incoming volume exceeds outgoing interception capacity. The third shift is coordination with proxies. This is where the strategy becomes multidimensional in a way that is genuinely new. In previous conflicts, Iran's proxies Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis fired their own rockets and missiles more or less independently. The timing wasn't synchronized with Iranian strikes. There was no unified operational command coordinating simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. What Iranian military planners have been moving toward, and what Israeli intelligence officials have warned about publicly, is the concept of a coordinated multi-front missile barrage. Picture this: Iranian ballistic missiles coming from the northeast, Hezbollah's longer-range rockets and missiles coming from the north, Houthi ballistic missiles coming from the south, all arriving in overlapping time windows, targeting different sectors of Israel's defense architecture simultaneously. That scenario is the nightmare that Israeli defense planners wargame obsessively, because it doesn't just stress the physical interception capacity of the system. It stresses the command and control. It stresses the decision-making. When threats are coming from 4 different directions at once, who do you engage first? What do you let through in order to prioritize something else? These are impossible choices, and Iran's evolving strategy is specifically designed to force Israel into making them. Now let's talk about what Israel is doing in response. Because Israel is not sitting still. The Israeli defense establishment is one of the most capable and adaptive military organizations in the world, and they have been pouring resources into trying to stay ahead of this evolving threat. Israel has been accelerating the development and production of its Arrow 3 system, which is designed specifically for exo-atmospheric interception, meaning it can destroy ballistic missiles while they are still in space before they re-enter the atmosphere. Israel has also been working with the United States on the Iron Beam, a directed energy weapon. Essentially a high-powered laser that could potentially intercept missiles at the speed of light with essentially 0 cost per shot as compared to interceptor missiles that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. The economics of missile defense are a critical vulnerability. Every time Israel fires an Arrow interceptor, it costs somewhere between $1 and $3 million. Every time Iran fires a ballistic missile, it costs far less. Iran can sustain a war of missile economics far longer than Israel's interceptor stockpile can absorb it, unless Iron Beam or similar directed energy systems change that equation. But Iron Beam is not yet fully operational at scale. It's a capability that is coming, but the question in military planning is always, is it coming fast enough? Israel has also been investing heavily in intelligence, specifically in trying to understand, in real time, when and from where an Iranian strike is being prepared. Satellite surveillance of Iranian missile launch sites, human intelligence inside Iran, signals intelligence monitoring Iranian military communications. The goal is to increase warning time, because warning time is everything in missile defense. An extra 60 seconds of warning can mean the difference between an interceptor reaching its target and a missile hitting its target. Israeli intelligence has shown impressive capability here in the April 2024 attack. Israeli and American intelligence reportedly detected the launch preparations hours in advance, which was part of why the interception rate was so high. But Iran has also been studying how it was detected, and it is taking steps to reduce its signature to make its launch preparations harder to detect, to shorten the window between the decision to fire and the actual launch, and to harden its command and control against Israeli intelligence penetration. This is the essence of the strategic competition unfolding right now. It is not a competition between politicians or diplomats. It is a competition between engineers and generals, between the people designing Iran's next generation of missiles and the people designing Israel's next generation of interceptors. And the stakes of that competition could not be higher. Because if Iran's missiles improve faster than Israel's defenses can keep up, the strategic balance in the Middle East changes fundamentally. The deterrence that has kept Iran from attempting a truly devastating strike on Israel rests in significant part on the belief that such a strike would fail, that Israel's defenses would absorb it, and Israel's retaliation would be devastating. If Iran's planners reach the conclusion that their missiles can penetrate at a level that changes that calculation, the deterrence breaks. And when deterrence breaks, wars start. There's another dimension to this that we need to address, and it's one that rarely gets the attention it deserves in mainstream coverage. The psychological dimension. Military strategy is not just about hardware. It is about will, about confidence, about what political leaders are willing to authorize, and what populations are willing to endure. For 40 years, Israel's missile defense systems have been a source of enormous national confidence. When sirens go off and missiles are fired at Israeli cities, and the Iron Dome lights up the sky with interceptions, it sends a message not just militarily, but psychologically. The message is, we can protect our people. Our shield works. Our adversaries cannot break through. If that confidence begins to crack, if Israelis start to believe that the shield has gaps that Iran has found, it changes the political dynamics of the conflict in profound ways. It creates pressure for preemptive action. It creates pressure for more aggressive responses. And on the Iranian side, every missile that gets through, even a single one, is a propaganda victory, a proof of concept, a message to the Iranian people and the wider Muslim world that the mighty Israeli missile defense can be beaten. The psychological stakes of each exchange are enormous, which is why both sides invest so heavily not just in the physical capability, but in the narrative around it. What does all of this mean for where we are headed? The honest answer is that no one knows for certain. Military competition between Iran and Israel has been escalating, not linearly, but in cycles for decades. What is different now is the pace of that escalation and the directness of the confrontation. Iran has fired directly at Israel. Israel has fired directly at Iran. Both sides have shown weapons and capabilities they previously kept hidden. The gloves are coming off in a way that they haven't before, and the missile competition at the heart of that conflict is accelerating. Iran will continue to develop more capable missiles. Israel will continue to develop more capable defenses. The proxies will continue to build their own inventories. And somewhere in the middle of all this technology and strategy and deterrence, real human beings in Tel Aviv, in Tehran, in Beirut, in Gaza are living with the consequences. Understanding this competition, Understanding why Iran's missile strategy is changing and what Israel is doing about it is essential for anyone who wants to understand what's happening in the Middle East.